Okay, I'm just making sure we're live. Hello, everyone. We're going to start the show a little early here today. I said 8 p.m., but let's get right into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Relief Valve podcast and the shitbag roundup, the Sunday shitbag roundup. It's February 2nd. And speaking of shitbags, we're gonna get into them right off the bat because you've got all these illegal fucking anti-American scumbags in California. So let's check some of this out.
Casey, thank you. Breaking right now, a crowd gathering this morning in downtown LA. You're taking a live look at a protest over the recent surge in ICE raids and deportations. Last Monday, President Donald Trump signing executive orders giving ICE agents greater ability to conduct enforcement actions in sensitive areas like schools, churches, and hospitals. Under the Trump administration, ICE agents are arresting nearly 800 people every day. Several local schools have begun handing out Know Your Rights cards, providing guidance on how to respond to immigration officers on.
So, first of all, this is what I've been hearing from some of these fucking reporters. Schools handing out cards that say "Know Your Rights," know what to do when ICE comes to your door. You're not legal citizens. You don't have any rights. I have no idea where the fuck this is coming from and why they're allowed to do this, but it absolutely drives me nuts. You are not a legal citizen of the United States. You don't have any rights. You don't have the right to protest. You don't have the right to do your First Amendment to do everything you're doing right now. You have zero rights. You came here illegally. You're a criminal. You don't automatically get covered by them because you put 1 foot over the border. So now you're good. The magic little protection bubble came down over you. You're here illegally. You're not supposed to be here.
Campus, this live look here happening in downtown LA again over those protests with ICE arrests and deportations happening across our area. We'll continue to follow this one.
And second of all, why isn't ICE there right now? You should be charging into their ranks like it's the final attack of Isengard in Lord of the Rings or something. Why isn't there an army of ICE descending on this event's going on in California right now? This was the perfect place. Half of those assholes are flying Mexican flags. Another thing that drives me nuts. If you leave your country because it sucks, don't come here and fly your shitty flag. If it was so fucking great, why aren't you still there now? Why am I looking at you on TV? Blocking traffic and protesting in our streets? Why am I even seeing you? Go back to Mexico where it's so awesome that you want to fly Mexico's flag in another country.
Fox, I'm Andy Mack. I want to take you out now to a developing story in Southern California as protesters have blocked the 101 freeway, protesters around the immigration crackdown. I want to put this up, a post from the Los Angeles Times reporter Daniel Miller saying downtown LA protest demonstrators are now streaming onto the 101 freeway.
Look at this, bringing traffic to a crawl. They were on the highways initially. Your right to protest doesn't extend to blocking the traffic of American citizens. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's a group of conservatives and they're trying to say something different. It's the fucking Proud Boys or something. I don't give a fuck. You can't go on the highway and block traffic. Go to an area that you've gotten a permit for and protest the proper way. Why are they here doing this? Because They don't have any grounds for any proper argument. They're not supposed to be here. They're liars. They're criminals. They've crossed our border. They are taking advantage of our system and taxpayer dollars. And now, in order to make their shit message heard, they're on the highways blocking traffic, blocking commuters that are going to work, blocking people that are trying to get to the store and purchase goods. Any number of things that they're trying to do, and they're on the highway right here, specifically getting in the way, blocking these people. Another thing, daring them to run them over, which, by the way, I would 100% be behind a law that you can run over motherfuckers on the highway if they're protesting. Make this a law. I will do my part to get my voice out there and support it, and everybody should. If you go onto highways and block roads, we should be able to run your ass over. So, streaming out of the 101 freeway near City Hall, bringing Sunday afternoon traffic to a standstill. Other protesters are crowding the overpasses where they're waving, again, Mexican flags and holding signs. But you're in America, so why are you waving a Mexican flag? If Mexico's awesome, why aren't you there right now?
Freeway near City Hall, bringing Sunday afternoon traffic to a standstill. Other protesters are crowding overpasses where they are waving Mexican flags and holding signs. Another post says, you can see just the traffic stop saying, here's our first dispatch from the anti-Trump immigration protests in downtown LA. Thousands of demonstrators have come waving Mexican flags and signs. Some have walked onto the 101 freeway, halting traffic. You can see they're providing an update on this story as well. And you can see the smell of...
So the acrid smell of tire smoke hung in the air on 101 freeway overpass as trucks, motorcycles did noisy burnouts, okay? So these assholes aren't supposed to be there. They go onto the highway. They bring their vehicles. They burn out on a taxpayer-funded road and leave scorch marks and tire marks all over the place. In the meantime, the police are blocking them, but not doing anything to arrest all of them and get rid of them. Why isn't this happening? Because the leadership in California is telling the police, you can't make arrests, you can't engage and go directly after the crowds unless they seriously do something wrong. They should be going after and arresting every one of these motherfuckers. Again, why isn't ICE here? This is just the fucking parade of illegal assholes. And ICE isn't here? What are you doing?
Of tire smoke hung in the air in the 101 freeway overpass. Trucks and motorcycles did noisy burnouts, drawing cheers and cameras. The vibes of this anti-Trump immigration protest remain positive as a large group of people protesting President Donald Trump's illegal immigration crackdown stormed the 101 freeway.
You're blocking traffic.
Los Angeles.
You're doing burnouts on roads. That's not positive.
For both sides of traffic in the area. The protest began around 9 a.m. There in downtown LA. Around half an hour later, the Los Angeles Police Department declared it, quote, a non-permitted demonstration and advised people to expect traffic delays. The crowd grew to a few thousand people who marched to City Hall before many walked onto the freeway near the Alameda Street exit shortly after noon. Video of the scene showed many carrying U.S. or Mexican flags, signs opposing U.S. immigration and customs enforcement. Police reported at 1:19 p.m. that the demonstration had moved back onto surface streets and opening both north and southbound lanes of the freeways.
How would it look if I ran down some road in Mexico, wherever, and I just charged down the road with an American flag? Have you ever seen it? Have you ever seen video or pictures from Mexico? I haven't. Maybe you have. I don't know. Have you ever seen video or pictures from Mexico that have people with American flags out front of their house or apartment? Or they've secured it to their car and they're driving around with it. I mean, for the most part, it doesn't make sense, does it? If I left my country to go to another country, there had to be a reason why I did it. I was unhappy about what was going on there. I was unhappy about the way I treated. I just decided I wanted to try a new place and live somewhere else. Whatever. It doesn't make sense to fly the flag of the place you just left. If you want to maintain some international pride about where you came from, or remember
people there,
your heritage and where you came from, that's no problem. Everyone does that to this day and age, right? If you're from Italy, you're thinking about the old practices of Italy, what your family did while they were there, how they cooked and prepared things at home. You bring... One of the great things about legal immigration is taking what you had and what you learned from your country and bringing it here to the United States and practicing some of that there. This is not what's happening here. What's happening here is waving their bullshit national pride for Mexico in the face of Americans that they are also spitting on because they came over the border illegally, they're living here illegally, they're getting illegal benefits of taxpayer dollars, and they're literally waving it in our faces with these shit flags. I could tell you as an American, if I went to go visit another country, or I stayed there on a work visa for a certain amount of time, or whatever it was, I wouldn't go out of my way and disrespect that country by waving an American flag, wearing an entire onesie made of the American flag. Like, go so far out of my way to do this stupid stuff and shove it down everyone in this country's throats, right? You're probably going to be able to tell very easily that I'm American, I'm not from there, whether I've attempted to learn the accent and communicate with people or what I've done. You'll very clearly be able to tell that I'm not from there. But for me, if I go to another country, I want to learn about what they do there, their practices and customs, and how they live. I want to respect their laws. I certainly don't want to end up in their jail as a citizen from another country. And I want to enjoy and be respectful of my time there, because I'm not there to show up as an American and fuck their country up. Maybe other people do this, right? They go to another country, they're very disrespectful. I wouldn't do that. Wherever I'm going, I would do my best to learn some of the language. One, for your own personal safety. Two, to know you're not getting ripped off when you're buying things from vendors. And three, just to show a little bit of respect while you're there, that like, hey, I tried to learn a little bit of the language. These people here don't do any of that. None of that's happening. They don't learn the language. They come in knowing Spanish and they have no fucking clue how to speak one word or one lick of English. They're waving their flag in our faces after they've gotten this opportunity. I mean, the amount of disrespect to this country and shitting on its people is absolutely disgusting. And there were chants from one of the bridges from another streamer that was co-opting but between two streams, where they were going around and yelling, "Fuck Donald Trump, fuck Donald Trump." This was a cheer and a mantra they had going on. Here's the deal. We wanted this, the American people. So it isn't fuck Donald Trump. It's fuck us. I know they're trying to equate this to one guy doing one thing. Trump's doing what we told him to do. Get all of these fucking people out of the country that broke our laws and took advantage of this country to come in here, hide, be useless shitbags, and get taxpayer dollars. It's not fuck Trump. It's fuck us. And not one American should be okay with this. I know there's lefty shitbag morons who are okay with this, but not one real American should be okay with this shit.
And you can actually see some people walking through on the highway, and just to show you how much this traffic has been stopped, as it's just about 2 o'clock on the West Coast right now. So we're following this latest story. Plenty of different crackdowns, different operations by ICE in various major metropolitan areas over the last week since President Donald Trump was sworn into office. He ran on immigration.
Okay, so ICE, keep doing your thing. Let me know how I can help. Okay, so let's move on with the rest of the show here. Now we're going to get on to the tariffs. And you've got Mexico and Canada very upset. You've got this sissy wannabe dictator who is allegedly the son of Fidel Castro, because his mom went down to Cuba to party with Castro and would sometimes go without daddy. And 9 months after hanging out with Castro, little baby Trudeau was born. Very, very interesting thing. And when you do a side-by-side, you see them as younger men, him and Fidel Castro. They look very similar, almost identical. So here's this sissy Trudeau, which is already supposed to have stepped down already. I know he's waiting until his party comes up with another replacement for him. So this shitbag is holding the fort in the meantime while they wait. But this is Canada's comments on the 25% tariffs that have been put on by Trump. Okay, some sound would help.
To the U.S. trade action, with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives. Our response will also be far-reaching and include everyday items such as American beer, wine, and bourbon, fruits and fruit juices, including orange juice, along with vegetables, perfume, clothing, and shoes.
Look how smug this bitch looks. And these other dummies standing with him. No one gives a fuck about we don't have our own orange trees? We can't grow our own vegetables? We don't already have our own booze? They're acting like, we got you, America. Now, what the fuck are you going to do if you can get OJ in wood from our trees? Our own? Somewhere else? Can't... Look around your house. Find one thing you got from Canada. Don't worry, I'll wait. It's probably nothing, isn't it? Because no one gives a fuck about Canada. So you need us a hell of a lot more than we need you.
It'll include major consumer products like household appliances, furniture, and sports.
Yeah, we can't make any of those at all.
And materials like lumber and plastics.
Yeah, we don't have any trees.
Along with
don't know how to make plastic either here.
More. And as part of our response, we are considering, with the provinces and territories, several non-tariff measures, including some relating to critical minerals, energy, procurement, and other partnerships. We will stand strong for Canada. We will stand strong.
This guy hasn't done one good thing for Canada. He's a radical left-wing shitbag that has wasted all of Canada's money on DEI radical left bullshit. If the Canadians had any brains at all, they would have gotten rid of this guy years ago. And he's still making decisions to fuck Canada.
Sure, our countries continue to be the best neighbors in the world.
If you want to be the best neighbors, stop fucking us over.
Our closest friends and neighbors.
We're not friends.
This is a choice that, yes, will harm Canadians, but beyond that, it will have real consequences for you,
Don't
the
threaten
American
us.
people.
Don't threaten us.
As I have consistently
You're not going to do fucking shit.
Tariffs against Canada will put your jobs at risk.
Not really.
Potentially shutting down American auto assembly plants and other manufacturing facilities.
Yeah, you know all those Canadian cars?
Costs for you, including food at the grocery stores.
Oh, it runs on maple syrup, eh? Pour some more in there. Holy shit, it came from our trees. Best trees in Canada, eh? Fuck off.
Gas at the pump. They will impede your access to an affordable supply of vital goods crucial for U.S. security, such as nickel, potash, uranium, steel, and aluminum. They will
do all that on our own.
The free trade agreement that the President and I, along with our Mexican partner, negotiated and
Mexico's
signed
not a partner. It's as
a few
far
years
away
ago.
from you as absolutely
Together,
possible.
We've built the most successful economic, military, and security partnership the world has ever seen.
Yeah, because we do most of it. You have like 5 assholes and 3 helicopters. You don't do anything.
Relationship that has been the envy of the world. Yes, we've had our differences in the past, but we've always found a way to get past them. As I've said before, if President Trump wants to usher in a new golden age for the United States, the better path is to partner with Canada, not to punish us.
No, it fucking isn't. And you're not mooching off us anymore. So let's talk about some of the things that we get from Canada. This is not everything, but it's mineral fuels and oils. Uh-oh. Vehicles. Which ones? I know of 0 Canadian vehicles. Nuclear reactors. We're barely using fucking nuclear. We don't get shit from you. Vegetable products. Yeah, we're incapable of growing those on our own. Wood and wood products. Yeah, you know how we ran out of trees here? Maybe in California they did. Food stuffs. What specifically are you referring to? Some ridiculous foods from Canada that no one eats? Precious stones and metals. Yeah, we don't have any of that here either. Animals. I love Canadian animals. They're my favorite things. Cereals. Who doesn't love their Canadian cereal? Electronics. Who wants a Canadian? Oh, beep, beep, beep. I got my Canadian alarm. It's time to wake up, eh? It's time to wake up, eh? Fuck off. So it's absolute garbage. Now let's go to... Fuck, I got rid of the Canada now, because now we got Mexico. Mira, what the fuck? You fuck us? All right, so we got the dumb leftist bitch in Mexico also coming to talk about how this is the new mayor president, el presidente, el presidenta, because it's a female. They voted this dumbass in. Let's see what she has to say about it.
Buenos días a todos, a todas.
Buenos días. Mira,
Siempre vamos a mantener el diálogo. Es fundamental en la relación entre México y el
fundamental
gobierno de
in
los
the United
Estados
States
Unidos. Ya en esta
relationship.
mesa
They got these
de
fucking
diálogo.
morons have got this right in front of it.
Y tenemos plan A, plan B.
We have a plan A and plan B and plan C
para
for
lo
whatever
que
the government of the
decida
United States
el gobierno de los
decides. What are you going to
Estados
send? Do? Send more illegals?
Ahora es muy importante
Now it is very
que
important for the
sepa el
people
pueblo
of
de
Mexico to
México
know
que
that we
siempre
will
vamos a
always defend the
defender
dignity of our
la
people.
dignidad de nuestro
Really? I thought you let the cartels do that. How's that going, by the way?
pueblo.
Now it's very
Que
important for the
siempre
people of
vamos-
Mexico to blah, blah, blah. That we always defend respect for our sovereignty and dialogue as equals. Yeah, you know how Mexico is respected around the globe.
A defender el respeto a nuestra soberanía y un diálogo como iguales, como siempre lo hemos
As we have mentioned, without subordination, we are going to wait, as I've always said, with a cool head.
mencionado, sin subordinación. Vamos a esperar, como siempre he dicho, con la cabeza fría.
En Veracruz, la radio.
So, just garbage. Now, we get a little bit more from Mexico than we do, certainly, from Canada. So, could you look at a little bit more of an impact from... A little more of an impact from Mexico. So the United States imports a $480 billion worth of goods from Mexico annually, with vehicles, auto parts, electronics, and crude oil. Now, the crude oil, it has to be processed. You can't just take crude oil and put it in your car or your truck or anything for that matter. It needs to be processed. Who has the processing capability? We do! That's why we're buying crude from Canada and crude from Mexico. Shit that they can't use on their own because they don't really have the capability to do it. So we're buying the crude and we're refining it so it's useful for vehicles and equipment. Fuck off. All right, let's see. This asshole's going to say anything useful whatsoever? No, it goes to a page and they ask for donations and they have zero information. That was helpful. We have the tariffs on China as well. That's 10%. As far as I'm concerned, it should be a hell of a lot more. God, these pages suck. Fuck off. No, I don't want a free account. I don't want any account. They're going to make me do it because it's the shitbags at the New York Times. So those scumbags want to fuck you over in order to give you any type of information. They want to charge you for their bullshit. So this is the Associated Press. Here are some goods in the crosshairs of Trump's tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. So President Trump signed the order to put tariffs on U.S. neighbors Canada and Mexico, as well as China, starting Tuesday. Canada and Mexico quickly announced retaliatory tariffs. Oh boy, won't get those Mexican-Canadian goods anymore. While China said it would take, we take a necessary countermeasure. We send more spies. The business between the North American nations now exceeds China, totaling $1.8 trillion in 2023. That is far greater than the $643 billion in commerce that the U.S. did with China in the same year. Trump declared an economic emergency Saturday in order to place duties of 10% on all imports from China, 25% on Mexico and Canada, Energy imported from Canada, including oil, natural gas, and electricity, will be taxed at lower 10% rate. Following are just a few imported goods whose prices might be hit first. For decades, auto companies have built supply chains across the borders of the United States, Mexico, and Canada. More than 1 in 5 of the cars and light trucks sold in the United States are built in Canada or Mexico. According to the S&P Global Mobility, in 23, the United States imported $69 billion worth of cars and light trucks from Mexico, more than any other country. The $37 billion from Canada. Another $78 billion in auto parts came from Mexico and $20 billion from Canada. So do you want to know why your cars keep breaking down and why you have to keep repairing them? It's garbage coming from Mexico and Canada. So what do we need to do in this situation? And there's a simple solution, because the infrastructure used to already be there. Get Detroit Motor City up and running again. Not only do you rebuild Detroit, not only do you get help for all the people that are there and living in shit lives right now, and then stop relying on Mexico for Canada for cheap crap that these guys can't be bothered to put effort in to make. You have engines and car seats and other things that cross border multiple times before going into a finished vehicle, said Scott Linicombe, a trade analyst at the Libertarian Cato Institute. You have American parts going to Mexico to be put in vehicles that are then shipped back to the United States. It's a whole back and forth stupid thing. It doesn't need to happen. You throw in 25% tariffs into all that, and it's not just it's a grenade. That's your opinion, asshole. China is also a major supplier of auto parts to the U.S. In Report Tuesday, Global Mobility reckoned that importers are likely to pass most, if not all, of this cost increase to consumers. TD Economics notes that average U.S. car prices could rise about $3,000. This is the time when average new cars already go for $50,000, and the average used car for $26,000, according to Kelley Blue Book. Does anyone see new cars flying off the lots? Every time I drive by a car lot, it's 100% full. I never see it empty. I never see it half empty. I never see it 1/4 empty. They're always full of cars. Don't tell me people are buying brand new cars at such a crazy rate that we need to keep this bullshit game going. I do my best not to go out of my way and not buy a new car, because you're wasting a ridiculous amount of money at the price they're already overcharging you for. Because they got it, they had the whole thing made at 1/4 of the price. Everything else that they're charging you is pure profit. Who is going out and going, oh yeah, I buy a new car once a week? Nobody. All the dealers I see, they're always full. Tell me you haven't seen the same thing. They're always full. They're not selling. And then when they sit there for too long, they got to end up putting discounts on them. Or sending them to another place to be sold there. A New Year's Eve fucking sale, Christmas sale, 4th of July sale, every fucking day, Secretary's Day sale. These assholes are always having a sale. Why? No one wants to buy this fucking shit at the prices they're already charging. So who gives a fuck about the increase on the tariffs? Fuck new cars. Make them more affordable in general, and then we'll talk about the effect of tariffs. Canada, and I already talked about this. A guy talked about this on TikTok too, and he explained it very well. Canada is by far America's biggest foreign supplier of crude oil. You know who's processing the crude oil? We are. You know who can't really do it? Canada and Mexico. It's the reason they're selling it to us at a discount, because you can't use crude oil as it is. It's fucking useless as crude. You need to process it. You need to refine it. They're not doing us a favor by selling us shit they can't use. For many U.S. refineries, there's not much choice. Canada produces the type of crude oil that American refineries are geared to process. It's a heavier crude. All the fracking and all the oil and gas we make here in the United States, or most of it, is a lighter crude that a lot of American refineries don't process, particularly in the Midwest. So you happen to have a better type of crude. We still have to process it. It's still useless to us when it comes over the border until we do the rest of the work. Of the tariffs on Canadian oil imports, how the heck does that shake out? My guess is that it shakes out just through higher gas prices, particularly in the Midwest. Not really. We'll just focus on our own. We'll focus from somewhere else. We're already buying it. Tariffs on China could impact a wide variety of consumer goods that Americans depend on. Cell phones, computers, and other electronic devices were among the top imports from China last year. This is the one thing I'm actually willing to believe, because we buy so much cheap shit from China that, yes, I agree, this is going to affect us. So we need to stop buying a whole bunch of cheap crap in China. Cheaply made, cheap price. Last year about a month and it's gone. We need to work on that. Tariffs could raise the price for those raising a glass of tequila or Canadian whiskey. In 2023, the U.S. imported $4.6 billion worth of tequila and $108 million worth of mezcal from Mexico. According to the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, a trade group, the U.S. imported $537 million worth of Canadian spirits, including $202.5 million worth of whiskey. Canada and Mexico were also the second and third largest importers of U.S. spirits in the 2023, behind the European Union, the council said. What will we do without Mexican tequila and Canadian whiskey? Will we have to use the 500 other types of both tequila and whiskey that exist? How will we get by that way? So I don't give a fuck about the tariffs. And quite frankly, even if we look at a little bit of a price increase for us on certain goods, that's a sacrifice personally I'm willing to make when we make these countries that have been fucking us for years, especially Mexico. What are we dealing with right now? All the illegal immigration coming from Mexico. If I had my way, I'd tax them, tariff them at fucking 1,000%. Don't come here. Don't cross the border. Don't do nothing ever again. I don't want to see you until you get your shit straight. Now with Canada, who really thinks about Canada? Honestly, how many Americans think about Canada or think about something we're getting from Canada? I've never thought about that until they start bringing up bullshit like this. Who fucking cares?
$1 trillion worth of business with the U.S. each year. Trump says the tariffs are punishment for the flow of drugs and migrants into the United States.
Donald Trump told everybody on the campaign trail he's going to use every tool available to secure this nation, and this is a part of it.
Trump says the U.S.'s existing trade agreements are lopsided in other countries' favor, even though he negotiated the current U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which took the place of NAFTA in 2020. Canada is by far our biggest supplier of crude oil. Trump says he wants to produce more domestically.
You don't need the products that they have. We have all the oil you need.
It remains to be seen exactly how the strategy will play out, particularly for consumers. Critics say the tariffs will drive up prices and could ignite a trade war, hinted at by Canada's Prime Minister on Friday.
If tariffs are implemented against Canada, we will respond. We won't relent until tariffs are removed, and of course, everything is on the table.
And Trump may not be finished. When asked if he plans to impose tariffs on the European Union, Trump replied, quote, absolutely. Traveling with the president in West Palm Beach, Florida, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
And our thanks to Lucas Tomlinson for that report. We also wanted to share a social media post that President Trump shared on True Social just this morning, talking about tariffs, saying, quote, the tariff lobby headed by the globalist and always wrong Wall Street Journal is working hard to justify countries like Canada, Mexico, China, and too many others to name continue the decades-long ripoff of America, both with regard to trade, crime, and poisonous drugs that are allowed to so freely flow into America. Those days are over. The USA has major deficits with Canada, Mexico, and China, and almost all countries owes $36 trillion, and we're not going to be this stupid country any longer. Make your product in the USA, and there are no tariffs. Why should the United States lose trillions of dollars in subsidizing other countries? And why should these other countries pay a small fraction of the cost of what USA citizens pay for drugs and pharmaceuticals, as an example? This will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe, and maybe not. But we will make America great again, and it will all be worth the price that must be paid. We are a country that is now being run with common sense, and the results will be spectacular. And President Trump not limiting himself just to this one social media post. In fact, he continued earlier this morning sharing this as well. Quote, "We pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. Why? There is no reason. We don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy, should make our own cars, and have more lumber than we can ever use. Without this massive subsidy, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country." Harsh, but true. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state. Much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada. And no tariffs.
No tariffs.
This is a major issue that we are going to continue to follow, as it is now a wait and see to see just what impact these tariffs against Mexico, Canada.
Okay, so, and this would be great because Trump wants to get rid of the income tax, which I hope he moves forward with. The income tax we've had since the Civil War, which is interesting what you learn as you go through all this. You know, I'll admit, as someone that does the news, you learn a lot as you go through, and then the things that you don't know, you stumble on a new topic of conversation, and you get something, and you go, "This is where it came from," right? We have all these taxes, and we don't really talk about why we have all of these taxes. So we'll go back to the history of this. Okay, so taxation of income in the United States has been practiced since colonial times. Some southern states imposed their own taxes on income from property, both before and after independence. The Constitution empowered the federal government to raise taxes at a uniform rate through the nation and required that direct taxes be imposed only in proportion to the census population of state. Federal income tax was first introduced under the Revenue Act of 1861 to help pay for the Civil War. It was renewed in later years and reformed in 1894 in the form of the Wilson-Gorman Tariff. Now, that's when, instead of taxing, again, the American people, you made all the money from tariffs, so charging other countries for their goods that were coming into the United States. This is how they were making their money, off the tariffs. The 1894 slightly reduced the United States tariff rates from the numbers set in the 1890 McKinley Tariff and imposed a 2% tax on income over $4,000. It's named the William S. Wilson representative. So there was a change there. But the original form of the tariff was to take place of taxing your citizens with an extra tax. Now, the government, being greedy fucks that they are, ended up to signing that into legislation and just making it official, and then just we have paid for it through the rest of our history. Remember, we went to war over taxation without representation. Now we've got an even more ridiculous amount of taxation. The only difference is we've got the representation now. Except the representation doesn't give a fuck about us, because they get into office and they get their seat, and then they don't give a shit about anyone that got them into office anymore. So none of them are trying to get rid of these taxes. They're very happy for them to keep on going, because that's all revenue that goes in for the American government, and then they can turn around and take that revenue, and then they can waste it on bullshit programs like LGBTQ plus minus divided by sign. The transgender fucking school in Arizona. Funding bullshit stuff for Palestine and Ukraine. The wasting of taxpayers' dollars. Why do they have so much to use? Because of all these taxes that we're giving them that we shouldn't have to give. legal challenges centered on whether the income tax then in force constituted a direct tax in the Springer v. United States case of 1881. The Supreme Court upheld the tax regime then in force. An 1894 statute was ruled unconstitutional in the case of Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust Company. In response, the 16th Amendment, proposed in 1909 and became the law in 1913, canceled the apportionment requirement for income taxes. Federal income tax was thereupon reintroduced to the Revenue Act of 1913 in the case of Bruchaber versus Union Pacific Railroad Company. The 1913 Act was ruled to be constitutional. A separate excise tax was also imposed on all corporations. So you try to get rid of one, then they argue to bring another one back, and then after you've all forgotten about it, they go ahead and bring that third one back that you argued to get away from. This is all them fucking the American people over. We don't have to have these taxes. In the original colonies, there's the one that we're most familiar with is the one with the tax on tea, right? That's the one that we tend to focus on. But there were additional taxes, so there were catalysts that led up to that final one that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And the other ones were imposed by the British government in order to recoup losses from fighting the French and Indian War, in other battles. So they imposed taxes at that time on the colonies because it had cost the crown a lot of money to assist in defending their colonies here in the Americas. So they were already introducing taxes of their own before we ever thought about becoming our own country, in doing the exact same thing that they were trying to do here. So with the federal income tax to help with the Civil War. So for the North to fight the South, of course the Democrats always need money. So the North to fight the South, and some of the South was doing it too. The same thing. Money building, campaign building, right? So they imposed this bullshit federal income tax in order to build up money for one side to fight the other side. For that, you didn't have that tax. They got an income, or before that, another type of property tax or something else. So the government creates one in order to help with a situation that they've run into, an emergency situation. So we're going to war. We need this new tax in order to fund us. Because one, we're going to war, or two, the war is over and we have to recap our losses from said war. That's what happened with the federal income tax. This is what Trump is trying to get rid of. That income tax was just to help fund the war. It didn't exist prior to that. And then afterwards, they were like, that was handy. What if it was a thing? And they're like, sure, we like wasting people's money. We like taking money from the American people and then wasting money from the American people. And prior to that, the British government was doing the exact same thing. We build money for the king and the crown from fighting with the French when they were here. So they create these taxes to take them off. For anyone that's from the Northeast, I'll give you an example that's a little better, right? Massachusetts, for the Big Dig. You know, the fucking Big Dig. All of the tolls that you went through were supposed to help them fund the Big Dig, because it was such a big endeavor, which they got shithole companies that fucking lowballed their way into it. The lowest common denominator. And then after it was over, the tolls never went away. When you take the piker, you take something else. You don't have a booth to go through anymore. They got the fucking camera. They snap a shot of your license plate. They send you a bill in the mail now. What the fuck are those tolls still there for? The Big Dig's done. It's fallen apart because they did shoddy work, but it's over. Why are the tolls still there? I mean, we pay excise tax and our local taxes and what have you to maintain the roads. That's part of what comes out of our pocket and what we pay for all that. So if we're doing that, why do we still have tolls on the roads? So once a government puts a tax in place and they see the revenue that comes in, so what does this allow them? To waste it on garbage? To vote themselves raises? I mean, to just push their endeavors of bullshit all over the world. There was a most recent story that the new... mouth gets dry when you're just yapping on a show. The new press secretary was talking about. And I don't know, Caroline Leavitt, who's been doing a great job. She talked about when the incoming Trump team came in, they had to shut down a deal that it was either 50 million, I think. $50 million going to Palestine so they could buy condoms. Now, I know what you're thinking to yourself. You're thinking, Matt, what are they doing over there other than fucking goats and underage kids? What are the Palestinians doing? And I hear what you're saying. I hear you. But one of the things that they do is they turn these into, they inflate them. And they put explosives, or liquid explosives in them. I was watching a story on this. And then they tie them up and they float, they use them as aerial weapons. So they take them and they float them over to like the Israeli side. And then when they go there, they either drop, explode, and kind of, drop oil and flammable material over Israeli territory or other places, right? So the Biden regime was taking $50 million of, and let's so fact check. CNN's got a fact check for you. We'll get it from CNN. We'll see what they have to say. 5 big reasons to be skeptical of Trump's story. Not that it was a lie, to be skeptical. During her first official White House briefing as President Donald Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt announced that Trump had prevented a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. Trump's team, she said, used the president's pause on foreign aid to thwart a plan in which there was about to be $50 million in taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. Leavitt's Tuesday comments made headlines around the world, and the president himself told an even more dramatic version of the story in a speech on Wednesday, saying, "We identified and stopped $50 million being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas. But there are at least 5 big reasons. Let's be skeptical, people." The White House offered no evidence for the story, so they made up where $50 million was going. Leavitt provided no proof for her claim there was ever a federal plan to spend $50 million on condoms in Gaza. And when CNN asked Leavitt and her colleagues for any evidence, another White House official instead pointed us to comments from the State Department, comments that, as we'll discuss below, did not even repeat Leavitt's claim of planned $50 million. In 3 years under the Biden administration, USAID, the USAID, spent no money on condoms in the entire Middle East. You know what they did do? They spent money on transgender studies in Afghanistan. I remember doing a story on that. So we had to look into the importance of having transgender people who have all pretty much been thrown off roofs by the Taliban already. But we had to set up a transgender institute or something in Afghanistan. But CNN would like you to know that this is ridiculous. Condoms to Gaza, ridiculous. Funding for transgenderism, Afghanistan, perfectly reasonable. In 3 years under Biden's plan, spent no money, did not provide any fund for condoms in the Middle East, and blah, blah, blah. The report noted by The Guardian on Tuesday said the only Middle East contraceptives provided or funded by USAID during that 3-year period went to the country of Jordan in fiscal 23. That was a small order of injectables and progestin-only contraceptive pills totaling about $46,000. I don't care if it was $5. Why were we sending contraceptives to Jordan? Why do we give a fuck about Jordan? Total worldwide USAID condom spending is far less than $50 million. In 2023 fiscal year, USAID provided a fund of a global total of $7.1 million worth of male condoms and about $1.1 million worth of female condoms, overwhelmingly to countries in Africa, according to the federal report. So thank God, while we're arguing over the issue of abortion here in this country, and whether women can kill their kids and how we should deal with sex and responsibility between people, that we're not forgetting about the rest of the world and we're sending condoms to Africa. You know, and while in this story, they're trying to talk about how ridiculous it is that they made this claim, they are also admitting that the claim was accurate. That we are sending condoms to other countries. So you mean to tell me that the program of USAID is sending condoms to other countries all around the world, but this one here going to Gaza is a ridiculous statement. So CNN can fuck all the way off, because that has happened, it has been happening, and they haven't been lying about it. And the bottom line is the waste of taxpayer dollars to other countries when we need to be focusing inward on the United States and helping her citizens. That's what we should be doing. Okay, so moving on to apparently the fucking, like, just don't get on a plane. Don't get on a plane anywhere. Don't do it. This is going to be the moral of this story right here is you couldn't pay me to get on a plane right now. So the crashes you've had are DC, Philadelphia, California, and then there was another one in, I think, Texas, where, was it Houston? Where the plane hit the wing. They were on the ground, they were taxiing, moving around, and the wing of the plane hit the transport guy on his big fucking truck, and he's taking the baggage or whatever around, right? They hit him, crippled the thing, send the guy to the hospital. I don't know what's going on with the FAA, but they're having some serious problems. So here is the Philly one here. We'll start with this one. This was the medical jet crashing.
Medical jet in Northeast Philadelphia. A Learjet 55 went down around 6 o'clock last night, shortly after departing from Northeast Philadelphia Airport with 6 people on board. Ring camera footage shows the plane descending before a massive explosion.
The thing fucking shoots like a rocket.
A large fire burned in the wake of the crash, prompting a significant response from emergency crews. Vehicles in this area could be seen on fire. Police said multiple people on the ground were hurt, and we spoke with witnesses who detailed what exactly they saw in the aftermath.
There was a fireball, there was debris everywhere, there was people running back and forth, there was so much stuff happening at once.
And it was just very graphic.
There is no word at this time on what caused the jet to go down. Right now, we do know that there are multiple investigations underway. The NTSB will have boots on the ground today to determine the exact cause of the crash. And Chopper 6 is live over the scene right now here in Northeast Philadelphia, where crews, they cleared out for the night as those fires were put out. But you can see in this area that there is just debris scattered across the roadway. We do know that officials are expected to hold a news conference this morning to bring us the latest in this investigation. But obviously, this is an investigation that will span blocks here in Northeast Philadelphia and is sure to take a significant amount of time.
And it's starting to appear that we're getting to look at some of the parts and pieces of this medical aircraft right there near the crosswalk near Cottman and the Boulevard. We do have team coverage as we continue to follow this breaking news. Let's begin with Action News reporter Becca Hendrickson, who is live at the scene right at the perimeter at Cottman Avenue. Becca.
Maggie, like you said, I'm at Cottman and the Boulevard, only really a couple feet from where this tragedy happened yesterday. We've seen more police officers come onto the scene as the morning comes on. Investigators, of course, keeping a tight perimeter around the debris field. Investigators, including from the FBI, NTSB, coming out to the scene this morning to really determine exactly what happened here as a plane fell from the sky, causing devastation. We all know how busy the Boulevard is, how many businesses are in the area, how many houses are in the area, just how heavily traveled it is and how many people were impacted. And the video, just shocking. Take a look at the neighborhood surveillance video. The moment that plane crashed from this ring video, the impact, devastation, a massive fireball exploding in the sky. That's happened between 6 and 6:30 last night on the Boulevard near Cottman Avenue. A medical transport plane with 6 people on board, a child, a pediatric patient, her mother, and 4 crew members, all of whom were not expected to survive. It was a Learjet 55 that had just left Northeast Airport, according to authorities, on its way to Springfield Branson National Airport in Missouri. And this video from Chopper 6, we see the massive crater in the ground, the pieces of the plane surrounding it, the burn-up cars from the impact of this fire, the devastation that this crash caused in such a busy area, prompted, of course, the massive response of law enforcement officers, firefighters, state troopers, PennDOT, the DEP, other organizations, NTSB, FBI, so many different authorities on the ground here trying to figure out exactly what happened, creating this safety perimeter. The number of fatalities and injuries still unknown at this point.
Right now, we're just asking for prayers for any and everyone who may have been affected. We do want to note that several dwellings and vehicles were impacted. So what are we asking you to do for us right now, Philadelphia? We're urging you to please stay away from the scene. If you see debris, call 911. Don't touch anything.
But that's a really important point from the mayor there. That debris needs to be handled by the authorities coming out here to investigate this scene. They need to be able to get their hands on it to figure out exactly what happened, what caused this tragedy. We are here at Cottman and the Boulevard waiting for more answers, expecting that press briefing around 9 a.m. this morning. For now, live here on the Boulevard, Becca Hendrickson, Channel 6 Action News. Maggie and Caroline.
What a massive and devastating scene there. Thank you, Becca.
Let's go now to Action News reporter Corey Davis. He is also live on the scene now where the force of the explosion just sent debris flying all over across the area. Corey, kind of bring us up to speed on what it looks like where you are this morning.
Maggie, we're at Cottman Avenue and Bustleton. Take a look behind us. This is really a straight view of the majority of the scene here, spanning several blocks here along the Roosevelt Mall where we are at the moment. Witnesses have been giving us firsthand accounts of disturbing scenes that they saw out here after that plane went down in this area. This is a very busy area, of course, with a lot of traffic during the height of rush hour. Restaurants and homes around here too. Firsthand accounts giving descriptions of hearing the explosion and then seeing debris just raining down onto people, cars, and the homes and businesses out here. People were in the drive-thru at the Wendy's here at Cottman and Bustleton, as well as the McDonald's over at Cottman and the Boulevard. A lot of similar accounts of what people saw. Take a listen.
It was like a boom. We all stepped back, and it was real crazy. It was like real bright.
I definitely saw debris falling. There's all over Cottman. And I mean, I was scared to run in, but at that point, you can't get scared.
And that man did say that he did eventually run in to try to help as much as possible, and he saw people in distress. So that alone.
So it was a medical jet. It had the, as they said, the crew of 4, a Mexican child, his mother as well. They haven't said specifically that they're United States citizens. Now, it's not uncommon for people from one country to travel to another country in order to receive medical attention. You'll hear some of the more kind of richer, well-to-do people. They won't be able to get a cancer treatment that they want here in the United States because of whatever's in the way or whatever medications aren't approved. So then they'll go to France or they'll go to Mexico, they'll go somewhere else where they're experimenting with something and they want to pay the extra money out of pocket in order to go with that or go with that trial and try what wouldn't work in the United States. So it's not uncommon for that to happen. It's possible that it was a well-to-do Mexican family who had brought their child here to America for some sort of treatment, and then they were going to another facility and then would have, at some point would eventually make their way home when the child services were successful, or they got in everything and then they go back home to rest again. But that was the crash of the and we haven't gotten anything detailed on that yet. They're saying that it took off. It was up for about a minute or two, and then seemingly lost power completely, and came crashing to the ground like a rocket, like it had lost all power, went into a dive, and came down like a missile. It's really odd. And we're waiting for more on that. The NTSB, the National Travel Safety Board, is there, but they're also they're also dealing with the Black Hawk helicopter crash and the Learjet in DC. So their focus is over there right now. I'll see if I've got that as the second video. Here was an update. Well, it's 23 minutes. I don't want to go quite that long. We'll get some information on this here.
Safety to determine what happened, how it happened, and why, with the aim of preventing it from happening again. Yesterday at about 18:06 Eastern Standard Time, a Learjet 55, Mexican registration, X-ray Alpha Uniform Charlie India, call sign Mike Tango Sierra 056, was destroyed when it crashed into a commercial and residential area shortly after takeoff from Northeast Philadelphia Airport, with 6 people on board, including 2 crew members. Night instrument meteorological conditions prevailed, and an instrument flight plan had been filed for Springfield Branson National Airport in Springfield, Missouri. The air ambulance flight was operated by MedJets USA, doing business as Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, which is based in Mexico. They also have facilities in Miami. Let me take a moment to express our deepest condolences for all those who were impacted by this devastating tragedy. I also want to extend our deepest sympathies for all those who were injured in this accident. NTSB investigators began to arrive within 90 minutes of the crash, and I deployed a full GO team this morning. On scene is a total of 17 people with specific expertise in areas of aviation safety, and of course me as well. I want to say that I have really been moved by the outpouring of support for the NTSB over this past week. This morning, the U.S. Park Service flew me by helicopter up from DCA to Northeast Philadelphia Airport, and I really want to thank the U.S. Park Service because it was a very quick call and request by us, and not only did they fly me here, but they also spent some time giving me an aerial view of the accident site. That support extends to federal, state, and local officials here in the Philadelphia area, and I want to start by really thanking Mayor Parker and her entire staff. We did go over to Unified Command and met with her, met with the 2 chief deputy mayors and her staff, and I really want to thank her for her extending resources to us and for the unity that's here to get to the bottom of what occurred. I also want to thank the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, who has been very engaged not only at DCA with that accident investigation, but here in Philadelphia, and the FAA Acting Administrator, Chris Rochelot. I also want to thank Governor Shapiro, Senator Fetterman, Senator McCormick, Congressman Boyle, Philadelphia Office of Emergency Management, Philadelphia Managing Director's Office, Philadelphia Fire Department, Philadelphia Police Department, Philadelphia Department of Licenses and Inspections, Philadelphia Streets Department,
Philadelphia Department of Falafels.
Philadelphia Gas
Gives a fuck.
Works, Philadelphia Department of Public Health.
Shut the fuck up.
And then I will
Philadelphia Department of people who don't have anything better to do with their time.
The crash itself.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a little bit about the flight itself. The flight originated at Opelika, Florida, yesterday afternoon about 12 p.m. The aircraft arrived at Northeast Philadelphia Airport around 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon. It was on the ground for a few hours and departed runway 24 at about 6:06 p.m. And it was, like we said, it was dark at the time and instrument conditions. The aircraft climbed to about 1,500 feet above the ground. We were looking at GPS data on the aircraft, a slight right turn followed by a slight left turn, and then a steep descent towards the ground where it crashed. The entire flight lasted less than a minute.
See,
Thank
no real
So I wanna
information on
stress
it.
This was a high-impact crash, and the plane is highly fragmented. There is a substantial impact on the entire community. The debris field extends 4 or 5 blocks. And I do want to stress that this is an active investigation.
Yeah, so
scene.
parts of it landed
The
on somebody's
debris
car
is
and
scattered.
nearly
It
killed
is
a
very
woman's child.
dangerous, and so I encourage.
Shut the fuck up. Okay, so that's a Philly one, and those dummies don't know anything or don't want to say. I mean, do you honestly believe him at this point? I don't. Now we've got the DC crash where you had a Black Hawk helicopter team of 4 ended up very oddly flying right into a fucking Learjet. They were supposed to be, so this was a training exercise. And you're hearing about the training exercise was continuity of government. What continuity of government is let's say we have a major event that happens in the United States of America. There's a nuclear attack. There's something on that scale really bad. The continuity of government is getting all of the members they possibly can of everybody that's in Congress and the president, or the surviving members of the attack. That's a continuity of government. It's allowing for there to still be a functioning government left over after a major event. Now, I don't really want any of those fucking assholes to survive, aside from President Trump himself. But we don't need any of those fucks, and they shouldn't have a priority over the American people. But as far as the government goes, this is how it runs. There's a priority on getting the government officials to safety. Any movie you've seen where they're getting moved into the bunker, they're getting, moved to this location or that location, right? It's that's a continuity of government move that they're doing on there. So this helicopter was training in continuity of government maneuvers. So getting the surviving members or pretending to have VIPs, flying low and getting to another destination and getting them to safety. They were supposed to stay at 200 feet. They ended up climbing to 400 feet and then getting in the way of landing planes. They were not supposed to be there. So it's really odd that Pete Hegseth, the new, head of the DOD, the Secretary of Defense, has said that it was an experienced crew that was flying the helicopter. So the question is, how did they make a mistake this bad? There, as I've said on the updates that I've done, there were rumors going around that was being created that it was a transgender pilot, and this was like a transgender day of vengeance type of thing. That's not the case. I've seen, and I can't find where I saved that video, but there was a video of all of the majority of the flight crew with another one being released. Let's go to.
And we are learning more about the victims on board the plane and helicopter. Whit Johnson is in Washington, D.C. with the latest for us. Good morning, Whit.
Michael, good morning to you. There is an overwhelming sense of grief as this tragedy has touched so many different communities. At least 2 of the victims were as young as 12 years old, some dying alongside their parents. And we've been speaking with loved ones who are determined to keep their memories alive.
This morning, we're beginning to see the faces and hear the stories of the 67 lives lost in that fiery crash over the Potomac. Flight 5342's first officer, Samuel Lilly, was just 29 years old and newly engaged. Tiffany Gibson telling ABC News her little brother was a kind soul.
He was young, he was so young, and he was excited about life and his future and getting a dog and a house and kids, and this is just tragic.
Ian Epstein, one of 2 flight attendants on board, was a father and husband. His family saying in a statement he loved being a flight attendant because he truly enjoyed traveling and meeting new people, but his true love was his family. Elizabeth Keys being remembered as a strong, fearless woman who embraced life at full speed. She was killed on her 33rd birthday, returning home early from a business trip so she could go on a date with her longtime partner, David. Kia Duggins, a civil rights attorney, set to become a professor at Howard University Law School in the fall. Howard saying that Duggins dedicated her career to fighting against unconstitutional policing and unjust money bail practices.
Yeah, you mean fucking over Americans to let criminals out of jail.
The loss of at least 14 athletes, coaches, and family members who were returning from a training camp. 12-year-old Brielle Byer, a cancer survivor, was with her mother, Justina. Andy Byer telling me his daughter Brielle could light up any room.
She was just such a fighter in everything she did, and she just lived life to the fullest with everything. She was so proud of herself in figure skating, and I will miss that so much.
Spencer Lane, killed along with his mom Christine, was a 16-year-old figure skating phenom. His father Doug says he was unstoppable.
He's was a force of nature. He just had amazing athletic abilities and just was someone who you couldn't make him do something, but if he was like, hey, that's interesting to me.
Two white people had an Asian kid. That's interesting.
Married Boston Skating Club coaches and former world champions Zhenya Shishkova and Vadim Nomov, seen here competing in 1996. Friends calling their deaths a tremendous loss for the skating community.
Just one of a kind. They cared about their athletes and were world champions themselves, and they were just champions in life.
Now, removing victims from the wreckage is an incredibly delicate process. Sources tell us they have ceased diving operations for now until they can lift entire parts of the fuselage to the surface of the river.
Very conveniently didn't talk about the Black Hawk flight crew. All right, it's fucking getting in the way, and it's not even letting me type. Okay. I want to get... So a Durham woman was part of the crew. I don't know, excuse me, if it goes over all of them.
Now, the impact of that deadly collision is being felt across the country. So far, at least 2 of the people killed have ties to Georgia. Brooke Zahner with our Fox 5 Atlanta team has more on this as she joins us live from Parkview High School. That's in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Good morning, Brooke. Obviously, people feeling the effects of this all across the country.
Yeah, we learned within the last day or so that 2 of those victims, as you mentioned, do have ties to Georgia, to the Atlanta area. For one of them, that includes Army Staff Sergeant Ryan O'Hara. He was on board the Army helicopter when it crashed, and he was a 2014 graduate of Parkview High School here in Gwinnett County.
Ryan was one of the most dedicated and disciplined, committed soldiers I've ever worked with.
Shock and sadness continue in the wake of the mid-air collision near Reagan National Airport. Here at home, Parkview High School in Gwinnett County confirms one of the soldiers involved was a former student and a member of their Marine Corps Junior ROTC program. Ryan O'Hara joined the military shortly after graduating. He's remembered as a standout soldier who was highly respected.
As committed as he was to the Army and to the mission, he was really committed to his family. It was really sad to know, that his wife and new son are going to miss him dearly.
One of the pilots on board the American Airlines flight also had Georgia connections. 28-year-old Sam Lilly was a graduate of Richmond Hill High School near Savannah and Georgia Southern University. Sam's father, Timothy Lilly, says it was the worst.
All right, we already know about him. Who's...
Breaking news from CBS 17 News.
I would not be the woman I am. I would not be the officer I am, without her.
Breaking news tonight, the Army identifies Captain Rebecca Lobach from Durham as one of 3 soldiers inside the Black Hawk helicopter involved in a deadly mid-air collision with an American Airlines plane.
We spoke to friends and family hearing what they have to say tonight as this tragic news unfolds. This is what we know right now about this deadly mid-air collision. At least 41 bodies have been recovered, 28 of them identified. The black box for the airline as well as the helicopter
could take a
have
year.
been found. A full investigation could take at least a year, according to officials.
Friends across the Triangle are shocked and grieving tonight. Lobach graduated from UNC Chapel Hill after going through the ROTC program there, eventually becoming a pilot.
CBS 17's Dina Hartley joins us now. And Dina, you were the first person to break this story nationally, so tell us, what's the latest?
Yeah, so I've spent really all day today talking to a lot of her friends, people who knew her, people that were texting her the day of the crash, checking in on her. They told me those texts never went delivered. They talked a lot about her experience as a pilot, of course, but her friends told me more important than that, they really just want her to be remembered as a good friend. They told me she had a contagious laugh. They're obviously just shocked and devastated to hear this, but now they really want her to be remembered for who she actually
officer I am, like, without her.
Lexi Fries chokes up talking about Rebecca Lobach, her fellow military member, mentor, and friend.
Always giggling together, and it was just like, you always had fun with Rebecca. If I had a situation and I needed help, she was there and figuring it out for me.
Rebecca was one of the pilots inside of a Black Hawk helicopter involved in a fatal crash this week in D.C. She's a Durham native who graduated from UNC Chapel Hill in 2019, where she was involved in ROTC. Several friends tell me they texted Rebecca after hearing about the crash to check in on her, but those texts never went through. One of Rebecca's best friends, Sam Brown, didn't want to talk on camera, but says Rebecca was a distinguished military graduate from UNC Chapel Hill. It's a distinction only given to the top 20% of all cadets nationwide. Brown says Rebecca was a patriot who loved her country and trained to be the best of the best. Other friends say they owe their entire careers to Rebecca's mentorship.
If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be an aviation officer in the DC Guard. I don't know if I'd be an aviation officer at all. She really inspired my entire career. For weeks, I would send her a job posting, be like, I'm going to apply to this. And I'd send her my resume and cover letter, and she would tweak things for me and help me prep for interviews.
Another friend, Sabrina Bell, also didn't want to go on camera, but she says Rebecca was the happiest person she has ever known. She says Rebecca was meticulous in everything she did and never acted impulsively. Other friends say Rebecca was determined.
Not only did she care about being a leader and being the best officer she could, but also about being the best pilot she could.
And now her legacy lives on.
My goal for when I leave in flight school in April is to follow in her footsteps and bring her honor through all I do.
And the fellow service members and the friends who say Rebecca's he'll love, her dedication to her country, and her open heart are what they're going to remember.
She was just the type of person that would always go above and beyond for the people that she loved.
Okay, so that's at least 2 of the pilots. I think we're waiting on the identification of the other ones. So let's go now to the plane crash in California, in L.A. This dummy was in a kit plane. I know as odd as all of this is with these plane crashes and other things going on, this idiot was in a single prop. He was in a kit plane, which is like, I don't know, a plane you order off Temu and then you put it together. I don't know. Either way, the whole thing sounds like a bad idea. Here's some of that here.
New details now in that fiery plane crash in Fullerton. They killed a father and his teenage daughter. Investigators now saying the pilot's door was partially open during the flight.
Your door is ajar.
The home-built plane hit a warehouse before bursting into flames earlier this month. 19 others in that building were also hurt. Investigators say the pilot's door was ajar, possibly due to a modification that disabled a warning system, and that he attempted an emergency landing at nearby Fullerton Airport before the crash. The pilot and his 16-year-old daughter were the only ones on board.
So that was a dummy in his stupid kit plane. So note to self, don't buy kit plane off of like Amazon or Temu. And if you have a regular plane, your chances might be better. So that was the other crash, and that one doesn't seem as odd. It seems a lot more explainable, and it's just a moron in a kit plane who put his child in danger. And I wish that Shisa would have survived and her idiot father would have died, but unfortunately, both of them did. And I don't personally recommend making kit planes. That's all I can say. It's just the standard observer. And let's see. One more here of another plane incident that just happened the other day. It was yesterday or today. They're explaining the crash here in this video. So the plane makes a turn to head to the runway, and they go right into him in this recreation here. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. After it hits a tug at O'Hare. Okay, here we go.
We begin, though, here at 10 o'clock with breaking news at O'Hare Airport. About 3 hours ago, a plane hit a vehicle on the tarmac known as a tug. The driver of the tug was pinned beneath it. It had to be rescued. Police say the 64-year-old is now in critical condition with injuries to the head and lower body. No one on the plane was hurt. We're working to gather more information. We'll bring you updates as it comes in.
So, what's going on with flying? What's going on with the FAA? What's going on with these dummies that don't seem to know how to fly planes? There's an issue going on. You know, people criticize Trump for the saying that a lot of this is, he thinks, DEI hiring, diversity, equity, inclusion, and all of this woke garbage that the corrupt Biden regime and the Democrats have pushed. If you guys remember, during Biden's failed presidency, that there was a push by the airlines to they started asking for DEI hires. So instead of focusing on the most qualified person, they wanted them to be of a certain skin color, a disenfranchised skin color. Another person that was from a disenfranchised group, right? So maybe you could have a transgender pilot, or you could have a black transgender pilot, or if you could have a black Asian I don't know how you would even do it, but transgender. And they started a program that focused on bringing these people in. So instead of the most qualified to do the job for something that's very important, they started a DEI push, and they did that. They said we'll help people, we'll give grants or incentives to send people to flight school, learn how to do this, and your pilot could be a diverse person. Now I know when all of us are on a plane that the one thing I'm concerned about is I don't want a white person. I want a black transgender person flying. I'm very offended if it isn't a black transgender person flying my plane. If it's just some fucking white guy who knows exactly what he's doing and he's very qualified at flying the plane, I become very upset about that. Because I want to know where the black transgender person or the non-binary person is that has no idea what their gender is at all. I want to know why they're not flying my plane. That's something I get really upset about. Why is the person that has no idea what their gender is and they're dressed like one of those fucking characters from Saturday Night Live, like, I do that, you know, it's you have no idea if they're a man or a woman. Why aren't they flying my plane? And I know that that's a concern for all of you as well. It's very upsetting. Now, as far as the control tower in D.C., there's word coming in that there's a potential it was understaffed. One air traffic controller was allowed to go home early because he wanted to fucking go watch Netflix and chill or something. And you were down to a crew of 5. We're still trying to get a straight answer on whether having a crew of 5 is running the tower is legitimate enough. And the NTSB has been bullshitting with that answer, and they go, well, it depends on the weather, and it depends on other fucking things. Like, really? So if it gets fucking cloudy, you call in extra people, and then when it clears up 2 hours later, you fucking cut them and send them home? What are you saying to all of us here? How much of a crew do you need to successfully run the tower? Period, end of story. I don't care if it's fucking foggy, raining, it's a clear sunny day. I don't give a shit. What's the crew? They were running with 5, and one air traffic controller was handling not only fixed wing, so all the airplanes, but helicopters as well. And a lot of helicopters train in the area for military exercises, continuity of government, like I explained to you earlier. They're all in the area for different things, and it seems like they're getting in the fucking way a little bit. Apparently, there's been a couple other near misses that have happened at this airport, at Reagan Airport, and maybe you have to look at that too, and sending the military to another. You've got the Capitol, you've got the Pentagon. So if you have to remove them in an emergency situation, yes, you're going to be close to Reagan International, so you have to train in close proximity there, but it's getting in the way of all the other flights. So they need to come up with an alternative for these crews. I know they're still trying to break down whose fault, who went wrong, and where, but they've got to figure it out, and maybe the helicopters are going to have to get the fuck out of the way. So in finishing up here, because we've gone over an hour at this point, some of the illegals, and this is great news, because Guantanamo Bay is really not even used for much anymore. We had the terrorists from 9/11, and we put them in there, and it was like they were hanging out at the fucking Ritz-Carlton, getting treated great, instead of the scumbags that killed 3,000 Americans. And it's just been kind of sitting there in non-use, kind of a disrepair type thing, not being properly moved and moved forward and maintained. So now Trump is building new buildings, new infrastructure in there, and he's going to be sending 30,000 of the worst of the illegals to Guantanamo Bay.
We began in the United States, where President Donald Trump says he will build a migrant detention facility at Guantanamo Bay for as many as 30,000 illegal immigrants. Now, according to the commander-in-chief, these migrants will be deported from the United States and would be high-priority criminals. In a White House memo, President Donald Trump ordered the Pentagon and the Department of Homeland Security to begin the official process for the detention center.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back. So we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, right? And that's a tough place to get out of.
Meanwhile, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said the detention center would be a temporary transit point for the deportees.
This is a temporary transit, which is already the mission of Naval Station Guantanamo Bay, where we can plus up thousands and tens of thousands if necessary to humanely move illegals out of our country where they do not belong back to the countries where they came from in proper process.
President Trump's borders czar Tom Homan added that the U.S. government will expand its existing facility in Guantanamo Bay, which will be run by Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
The White House is working on to use resources that we currently have there at Guantanamo Bay. So we'll go through the process. The worst of the worst is where that could be utilized. So that potential is there. We know we need the infrastructure. We're going after these guys.
But who would run that? DHS or the Pentagon?
What you probably don't know, there's already a migrant center there. It's been there for decades. So we're just going to expand upon the existing migrant center.
Notably, the United States has been using a facility on the coast of Guantanamo Bay in Cuba for decades. This facility is known as the Guantanamo Migrant Operations Center and is located at the U.S. Naval Base. Now, to be clear, this is a different and separate facility from the high-security military prison in Guantanamo the U.S. houses suspected foreign terrorists. Meanwhile, Cuba, which protests against America's presence on its soil, wasted no time in denouncing President Trump's plan.
In a new act of brutality, a new government of the U.S. announces incarcerations of thousands of migrants forcibly expelled, and who will be located next to the known torture and illegal detention prisons at the Guantanamo Naval Base, which is illegally located in occupied Cuban territory.
Now, this criticism doesn't faze President Trump, who recently signed
the Raleigh
Act into law, which requires illegal immigrants arrested for crimes to stay in jail pending trial. Now, it's unclear if the facility would be enough to hold 30,000 migrants and how much the plan might actually cost. But what is clear is that the Trump administration is aggressively attempting to fulfill one of its key electoral promises in the first 100 days in office.
We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you.
touted as the minimum to his defense from that.
Okay, so he's going to be using that at Guantanamo Bay. That's good. So as a final thing here, I just wanted to talk about the new press secretary who is doing a great job. If you haven't had an introduction to her already, I think this was part of the first press conference.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible. As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S. investments, deported illegal alien rapists, gang members, and suspected terrorists from our homeland, and restored common sense to the federal government. I want to take a moment to go through some of these extraordinary actions. On day 1, President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border to end the 4-year-long invasion of illegal aliens under the previous administration. Additionally, President Trump signed an executive order to end catch and release and finish construction of his effective border wall. By using every lever of his federal power, President Trump has sent a loud and clear message to the entire world. America will no longer tolerate illegal immigration, and this president expects that every nation on this planet will cooperate with the repatriation of their citizens. As proven by this weekend, when President Trump swiftly directed his team to issue harsh and effective sanctions and tariffs on the Colombian government, upon hearing they were denied a U.S. military aircraft full of their own citizens who were deported by this administration. Within hours, the Colombian government agreed to all of President Trump's demands, proving America is once again respected on the world stage. So, to foreign nationals who are thinking about trying to illegally enter the United States, think again. Under this president, you will be detained and you will be deported. Every day, Americans are safer because of the violent criminals that President Trump's administration is removing from our communities. On January 23rd, ICE New York arrested a Turkish national for entry without inspection who is a known or suspected terrorist. On January 23rd, ICE San Francisco arrested a citizen of Mexico unlawfully present in the United States who has been convicted of continuous sexual abuse of a child aged 14 years or younger. ICE St. Paul has arrested a citizen of Honduras who was convicted of 4th-degree criminal sexual conduct with a minor. ICE Buffalo arrested a citizen of Ecuador who has been convicted of rape. ICE Boston arrested a citizen of the Dominican Republic who has a criminal conviction for 2nd-degree murder. This criminal was convicted of murder for beating his pregnant wife to death in front of her 5-year-old son. And ICE St. Paul also arrested a citizen of Mexico who was convicted of possessing pornographic material of a minor on a work computer. These are the heinous individuals that this administration is removing from American communities every single day, and to the brave state and local law enforcement officers, CBP, and ICE agents who are helping in the facilitation of this deportation operation, President Trump has your back, and he is grateful for your hard work. On the economic front, President Trump took immediate action to lower costs for families who are suffering from 4 long years of the Biden administration's destructive and inflationary policies. President Trump ordered the heads of all executive departments and agencies to help deliver emergency price relief to the American people, untangle our economy from Biden's regulatory constraints, and end the reckless war on American energy. President Trump also also signed sweeping executive orders to end the weaponization of government and restore common sense to the federal bureaucracy. He directed all federal agencies to terminate illegal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs to help return America to a merit-based society.
Hi, I'm Monty Torres.
So there you go. That was a little bit of her first press briefing and what the Trump administration was working on. She's doing a great job. She's clear with all of the shitbag press. And this last part here that I want to go over that I found particularly interesting, as far as getting information and communication out there, was unbeknownst to all of us, but knownst to the Biden regime. They had canceled the press credentials of many kind of outlying media outlets, Breitbart News and others. So in addition to bringing them back in and allowing them back into the White House again, they have also made openings for TikTok news creators, content creators that are doing news, such as myself doing legitimate news. And YouTubers and you're from Rumble, whatever it's from. If you're doing the news, you're doing it legitimately and you're not lying to people about it and bullshitting them, you can apply for press credentials. Now, I'm still building a show here. I don't have enough juice to get into or necessarily even warrant having access like this, never mind with a family having to travel back and forth to D.C. to get to White House press briefings. But a lot of the other larger news and content creators that are out there now have an opportunity to be there, be in the front row, instead of being either shoved in the back or not invited at all. And they have the opportunity to ask questions from their fans and their followers for the show, things that they want to know personally about what the Trump administration is doing. So I like this. We've all learned that the legacy media can't be trusted anymore. And I'm putting Fox News in that too. They can't be trusted. That's why so many people are reaching out to independent creators, people like myself and other larger creators that have been out there doing it for years. And they're getting their news and their updates from them because they know that they can't trust the legacy media, the CNN, the MSNBC, the Fox News, etc. They can't rely on that. And the American people, for a fair amount, have learned it. Not everybody, but in a fair amount. I think CNN's ratings were... They were interviewing someone, and they said that the Cartoon Network was getting more views than CNN was, or some of the time slots for CNN. So they're failing dramatically, and they're firing people at their areas. MSNBC is set to be broken up to several different kind of smaller parent companies or something, and it'll be handled in different ways. But that's being carved up like a turkey as well. You're not going to see MSNBC in the same fashion anymore either. And the reason that that's happening to these groups is because they're liars. They're the ones, they claim that there's disinformation out there while propagating disinformation to all of us, while lying to all of us about what's really going on with Trump, what's really going on with our nation, what's really going on with Democrats, and what they're really doing to you. They hide the truth from you. And they follow the narrative that their backers and funders give them, the narrative of the party that they shill for, which is pretty much the Democratic Party. And being on the fair side, Fox shilling for hardcore old hawk Republicans as well that aren't doing the American people any good. Fair's fair. That's why I'm saying that. Include all of them in that. But it's been a breath of fresh air to see this. So we're gonna finalize with this, and then we'll call it a show today. So here was her specifically addressing having the new media seats open to new people.
And in keeping with this revolutionary media approach that President Trump deployed during the campaign, the Trump White House will speak to all media outlets and personalities, not just the legacy media who are seated in this room. Because according to recent polling from Gallup, Americans' trust in mass media has fallen to a record low. Millions of Americans, especially young people, have turned from traditional television outlets and newspapers to consume their news from podcasts, blogs, social media, and other independent outlets. It's essential To our team that we share President Trump's message everywhere and adapt this White House to the new media landscape in 2025. To do this, I am excited to announce the following changes will be made to this historic James S. Brady briefing room, where Mr. Brady's legacy will endure. This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment, so it's why our team will work diligently to restore the press passes of the 440 journalists whose passes were wrongly revoked by the previous administration. We're also opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlet is not already represented by one of the seats in this room. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/new media. Starting today, this seat in the front of the room, which is usually occupied by the press secretary's staff, will be called the new media seat. My team will review the applications and give credentials to new media applicants who meet our criteria and pass United States Secret Service requirements to enter the White House complex. So in light of these announcements, our first questions for today's briefing will go to these new media members whose outlets, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in this room.
So there you go. More great moves by the Trump administration and giving other people new opportunities. All right. You believe this? David Hogg just delivered his speech at the DNC to become a vice chairman. This fucking faggot who claimed, I was near a school shooting, and he was riding his bicycle down the street, and he wasn't anywhere near it. And since this fraudster has become popular within the Democratic Party, the guy's a fag.
Because I don't just tweet. I don't just talk the talk. I also walk the walk and I knock the knock in doors across the country, but I'm counting on you.
I knock the knock. I knock my boyfriend's booty all the time.
Your support.
He only talks. Look at this fucking guy with this nerd with the fucking afro. Holy shit. All he does is talk. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't walk the walk. He doesn't do. He tried to create a failed pillow company to compete with My Pillow. It was an absolute disaster right from the get-go. It crashed and burned in fucking day one. The guy's a scumbag piece of shit. He has been for his whole shit. Fucking, he still looks like an adolescent queer. Salem police officer being... This is my Twitter page, by the way, X page. Salem police officer being surrounded by morgue illegals and anti-American scumbags. So, all right, folks, we're going to wrap it up here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Like, share, and support the show. I appreciate all the new members we're getting, and there'll be updates. There'll be shorts and updates throughout all of the rest of the week. Enjoy what's left of your evening. Thanks, everyone.